In the automotive industry, we're very influenced by the US because that's where that industry started. And although we've got cars that are made in the UK, they tend to be Ford, and we've got Land Rover, Range Rover, which used to be a British product and has been bought by an Indian company called Tata. But they still have their biggest production plant in the UK. So it all depends on what industry you're talking about. If you're talking about food or marketing, then the UK has its own culture for that, because a lot of the ideas tend to come out of Europe and out of the UK, and we're very strong in those industries. If you're talking about finance, then there's a big impact from across the pond, again, because it's very much driven by the American market historically, and it tends to trickle down into the UK, the United States. Politically and historically, since the Second World War, since Churchill, England, the UK, so that affects us much more politically. For example, in terms of, let's take the Gulf War, the Allied forces were Britain and the US. And it also trickles down into business in that there's a close tie between the UK and the US. I don't think we are a major trading partner with the US, but I think, and certainly services come from the US to us.
Right.
Companies in the UK are very hospitable to American business. So I don't think that there are any barriers. There will be slight cultural differences. Aside from the regulation aspect, and one thing that always strikes me when I meet Americans who live in America, we're very conscious here of the environment, for example, and it drives business decisions. Whereas in the States, you don't have that. You don't have it in regulation, nor do people have it. You might have it in certain places like Oregon, whereas we're a much smaller country. We're only 70 million people, so that tends to be a major consideration in business, which sounds a bit silly when you're speaking to Americans.
Right.
Do we build a plant here? Do we manufacture plastics, for example? Well, no, we don't manufacture plastics, and if we do, then we have to be conscious of all of the regulations, and you have to compensate the government also if you want to do something that is counterproductive to the environment. So there are issues like that I feel, on a personal, through my personal experience, that perhaps in Europe and quite a lot in the United Kingdom, the only other place that I think more than us is Scandinavia, where we give big considerations to these things. And also we, in the UK, we have a very good social security system. So we have a lot of rights for workers and unemployment benefit and maternity leave, disability allowance. The state really does take care of its people. It's enough that we have free medical care for everybody in the country, and it's not just like Medicare. It's very, very good care. It's, the top doctors in the world.